So first, let's cheers, man. Kanpai.
Cheers it is.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about this. God, I love sake.
So Dewazakara is a very, very well-known brewery in Japan. I think this is in Akita.
Oh, okay.
No, Yamagata. Sorry, shitsurei shimashita. It's in Yamagata. But yeah, so it's in the Tohoku region.
Yeah.
It's totally my style. I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I like this flavor a lot.
Yeah. So today, we're going to be talking about how to eat healthy in Japan, which is funny because, you know, a lot of people, they have this idea that Japan is like a really easy place to be healthy, you know, like,
yeah,
I'll tell you, it was really funny. So when I first came to Japan back in 2013, I slimmed up really quickly.
Sure.
And it was great. And then some things happened and then I got fat again, you know? And I still haven't like gone back down to that level. Like I remember just with my wife the other day, I was talking about how like, you know, I've always been kind of chubby a little bit. She's like, there was a time when you weren't. And I was like, oh shoot, that's the time when she met me. That's when she met me. That's her first impression of me. Yeah.
So you peaked early and
I know, just going down. Yeah. So I want to talk about that. But what's been your experience like living in Japan and eating healthy?
You know, that's actually a really funny question because so, you know, I've mentioned before that I've been kind of obsessed with health lately.
Yeah.
And I don't eat any Japanese food now.
Really?
None.
What?
Yeah, I'm not saying there's no healthy Japanese food. But what I've found is it's really hard to get protein on a Japanese diet.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to get protein for sure.
A lot of Japanese food is very carbohydrate dense.
Yeah.
You know, like obviously rice, and then everything that's made with rice. A lot of alcohol. And then your sources of protein mainly come from fish, right? You know, there's other sources, but like on a kind of more traditional Japanese
like fish
diet,
and tofu.
It's like fish and tofu, and as somebody like I've got into weightlifting and I'm trying to put a lot of testosterone in my body.
Yeah.
And tofu is really not great for testosterone because it actually gives you estrogen, which is like the opposite of what you want if you're a man and you're weightlifting. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a struggle. And I think when people think of like really healthy Japanese food, they typically think of fish. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would think of like the fish and the vegetables and stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, there's so much more to that. And it's like, dude, like, how many different places do you go to that have like a million different snacks?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So like one thing that's especially something that really surprised me. So one of the reasons I lost weight so much and I got so healthy so quickly, I lost, I think like I don't know, close to like 10, 15 kilos. So like 20, 30 pounds in like 2 months.
Okay.
It was like, because I got a little bit fatter before I went to Japan and then I just, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, so there were a couple things that went with that, right? One was, I was like, I'm in Japan now. So, thanks, man.
Yep.
I'm in Japan now, so I want the Japanese experience. So I'm just going to eat Japanese food.
Yeah.
So I would have like traditional Japanese breakfast with like natto and stuff like that.
Sure.
And also I was moving around all the time. This is before I started really working. So I was meeting people, walking a lot. Yeah, especially in Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is I got like so used to that I got used to the Japanese experience and I was like, okay, so I've been living this way. This is nice. And about 8 months into my 14-month time, I was like, okay, well, I can kind of find a balance now. I went to one extent. Yeah. And then I came back and I just started eating junk again.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you brought up a really interesting thing that I really want to address where you were moving around a lot.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why Japan's kind of looked upon from the outside world as like a very, really slim nation. I think people really underestimate how much people walk here. You know, of course it depends on what your job is and where you live, but you can't even compare it. Like my life as an American, it's like you just drove your car everywhere. Yeah. You know, like here, I every single day I walk 15 minutes to this train station up and down a hill.
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty, like, you got to think about that. That's 30 minutes of walking every single day. And yeah, it's like walking's not the most intense exercise, but it still burns calories. You know what I mean? And I think a big reason why a lot of people tend to be more on the slim side here than other nations is just because people are just moving more. Yeah.
How have you experienced that in your actual life, though? Or what's been your experience with that?
So, your perfect experience is when COVID started.
Yeah.
I gained like 6 kilos.
Whoa.
Because we started online class, so I wasn't walking around anymore. And I just got fat. I mean, my diet was terrible too at the time. Like, I was eating garbage.
Yeah.
But before I was eating garbage and moving around. So it's like I was burning more calories every day. And at the end of the day, calories are all that matters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In regards to like gaining and losing weight. So I think that combined with another thing is proportions are frustratingly small here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you go to a restaurant, it's not like you can't get a lot of food here, but you have to order a lot of dishes.
Yeah.
You know? Like in America, it's like if you go to like Applebee's or, you know, one of the big American chains, right? You get like a steak and potatoes.
Yeah.
It's like you get the big giant steak.
Yeah.
And a big pile of fries and maybe like a salad or something.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like a big plate.
Yeah.
But here it's, you know, if you go to like a yakiniku place, right? You order like, you know, a 3,000 yen platter for like 2 people. I'm not saying I'm eating for 2 people.
Yeah,
right.
If you're in that situation, no, I get it. Yeah.
You're gonna get like a couple slabs of meat. Usually, you'll get like some extra stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that small proportion size, what it ends up doing is it slows down a person's eating.
Okay.
And if you slow down your eating, you'll lose weight because you end up eating less.
Yeah.
Because it takes time for your body to react to putting food in your stomach.
Yeah, I mean, so I get that, right? So I gotta tell you something that's kind of interesting. I don't know if I've told you this before, but I didn't like steak until I came here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because like all the steak that I had.
Crazy, man.
No. Let me explain myself.
All right, I'll listen.
So I'll tell you. So you know, I was born in Germany.
Okay.
My parents, since like 1985 or so, they had been living in Europe, right? Yeah. So my mom, when we moved back to the States in 1999, or when I moved, she moved back.
Yeah.
She was talking about how the meat cooked differently than she remembers before. She said it got a lot more of like, it smelled different when you cooked it.
Oh, interesting.
It was weird. Like, it was like it was messier or something like that.
Huh.
And I remember, like, the thing I didn't like about beef so much is it had this kind of like weird gamey taste to it. I mean, maybe I've never had like good steak before.
I think so.
But I mean, also I'm from Boston, like we're a seafood place.
Yeah.
But I remember always getting steak and thinking, oh yeah, this is nice, you know? But then when I came to Japan and I had the beef here,
okay, I will agree there.
It just changed my life, you know? I realized what beef should taste like. And when Natsumi came back with me to Boston and we had surf and turf, so we had steak and lobster. We were going all out, you know? And I remember getting the steak. It was huge. And it was all texture and like no flavor.
Yeah.
And I realized people put all these seasonings and stuff, but the meat itself doesn't have as strong as a flavor as the meat that I would get in Japan. So like for me, actually, the portions don't bother me so much because like the food is much richer here. So I get satisfied with less, I feel.
Yeah. I do agree. I do agree. I mean, especially for steak. I mean, it's like no question.
Yeah.
Steak here is just
I mean, if you want to pig out, you can always go to Tabe Hodai and like all you can eat, you know? They have so many places like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely true.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of steak though.
Yeah.
But my
Wait, so let's talk a little bit about your background though. So like so you're from where again?
From Seattle.
From the Seattle area, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so like what's like your favorite food that you would eat there? Steak?
Seattle's actually not known for steak.
Yeah.
they are known primarily for seafood.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Seattle is like, you know, because all the seafood
like
comes from
and
Alaska
crab.
and stuff.
Yeah.
It goes to Seattle.
Yeah.
So they're really famous. Yeah, for your, like you were saying, salmon, crab, and tuna.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like the 3 big ones in Seattle. And I hate seafood. I'm allergic.
Really?
To it. Yeah. I love crab. I love
You can eat shellfish. Okay.
Yeah. But I'm allergic to fish.
Dude, I gotta tell you. Sorry, I just gotta stop you there.
Sure.
So, I used to hate crab because I thought crab was like a lesser form of lobster, and because the crab
you're not wrong.
Well, no. But here's the thing: what I realized is that the lobster on the West Coast in Seattle tastes horrible, and the crab on the East Coast tastes horrible.
Yeah.
So if you can get both, then you're great. But you know, my wife is from Niigata, and there is literally it's a boat called like the Crab Boat, and it's like it's a restaurant that specializes in crab.
Really?
In Niigata.
Okay.
And like if you throw around 6,000 yen, $60, you'll get like this course meal with like all variations of crab.
Really?
I didn't realize how good crab could taste
Crab's pretty
until
good,
no, because I've had crab in Seattle. I've had good crab in Seattle, and I'm telling you, this thing was like it changed my definition of what crab is.
Really?
So if we travel, we have to go check it out, man. Sorry, you were saying about like Seattle steak.
Oh yeah, so
Seattle
food is like, I don't even know how to describe it because it's just like if you go to Seattle, it's such a weird place. 'Cause
yeah,
like the culture changes depending on what street you are.
Yeah,
it's like you'll be in this one part of Seattle, like usually South Seattle or like way north Seattle, and it's like kind of like grungy. It's really like the only way I can describe it is dirty.
Yeah.
But it's got like a flair to it that it's kind of endearing. Like you go there.
That's where I lived for 4 years.
Yeah,
I get
exactly.
It, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, like on 41st, 42nd Street, like near the UW.
Yeah. All the homeless people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of ethnic food there, and you'll get like there's literally food from every spot on the globe, and there's some really good places. And when I think of Seattle, I don't really think of a particular culture. It's kind of like this multicultural melting pot.
Yeah.
You know,
I understand what you mean.
In contrast, like for me, and like I said, I'm from the West Coast, but for me, when I think of like Boston, I think of like Irish people.
No, there's lots of Irish people in Boston.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's like this like a specific culture involved with that city, whereas Seattle, I don't think that exists.
You know what I think? So being a foreigner to Seattle from Boston, right? I was surprised at how many blonde people there were. Because like all the white people in Boston have like dark skin and dark hair because it's all Greeks, Italians, and
I can
like,
explain that actually.
Yeah.
So typically, I'm a big history buff.
Okay.
I really like looking into things, and so a big reason for that is depending on which country settled where. So if you look at like the UK with like Ireland and typically like Southern Europe, a lot of the people coming from those countries settled on the East Coast.
Yeah.
But Nordic countries and more specifically Germans, when they were moving to America, they pushed westward.
Yeah.
So a lot of people on the West Coast specifically are more German descent.
Yeah, so that's kind of like my image of Seattle. I mean, of course, Seattle is very diverse, but when you think about like a bedrock culture, it's like that kind of European culture kind of thing. I don't know, but anyways, we're now talking about Seattle stuff. We got to get back to the main topic.
Let's go back to food.
Go back to food in Japan. Eating healthy in Japan.
Coming back, I think you asked me this question of, you know, what was it like for me when I first came here and eating healthy. It was kind of like this weird journey because when I first came here, like I've always liked Japanese food, but I've had a massive aversion to cooking.
Really?
Yes. When I lived in America, I hated cooking.
Okay.
It was just lazy. I don't really have a good excuse for it.
Okay.
When I came here, I was like, okay, you know what? I was 27 at the time. I was like, you know what? I gotta be a man now.
Yeah.
I gotta
cook your own breakfast.
Yeah, I gotta cook my own food. Mom's not gonna make me food anymore. So, so I started like, you know, dipping into cooking. But I got bored, so I just started going like the lazy route. And
what does that mean?
So I started eating Conbini food.
Oh, dude. One thing we can so you can continue, but one thing I really want to touch on is the culture of eating out versus cooking at home is so different here. So we can talk about that for a second. Keep on continuing your story.
Well, it's funny you mentioned eating out because I have this weird quirk about me. Is I hate eating at restaurants alone.
Yeah,
I get really uncomfortable if I eat at a restaurant alone.
Like most people,
but you say that, but it's actually kind of a common thing here in Japan.
Yeah, it is.
If you go into restaurants, you see tons of people like just normal. They don't look like they're sad or anything. They're just finished work, gonna go to a restaurant and eat a dinner.
Yeah.
But for me that's very uncomfortable for me. So yeah, I was kind of stuck in this situation where it's like, okay, well, I either cook food or I order Uber Eats, which is super expensive, or I eat at Konbini, which is cheap. And we talked on our last episode about Konbini food, but I decided to not choose the healthy option and went to the junk food aisle.
Yeah.
So I actually was the opposite of you, as I put on a lot of weight when I moved over.
Oh,
here.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm just now starting to get back to where I was before I moved, and I'm still trying to get below that. My goal, right now, I think I'm 205 pounds, which is about 93 kilograms.
You're 205 pounds?
Yeah,
I'm heavier than you.
Well, I got some muscle.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well, I guess that doesn't make sense.
No. But it's I'm so we Greeks we're very dense people.
Yeah.
Fair. So, anyways, keep on going.
But yeah, so my goal is to be 170 by my next summer.
Okay.
So I've got quite the task on my plate. But anyways, so for probably my first 6 months, I just lived out of Konbini. And it wasn't until I kind of grew more confidence that I started, going to the supermarket and buying food and starting to cook. And as I did, I started incorporating more Japanese food into my diet, and you can eat a healthy diet of Japanese food. I mean, you go outside and look how many skinny people there are. And it's not like those people are eating hamburgers and tacos every day.
Yeah.
But I think there's this massive over exaggeration of people just think oh, it's all healthy. Rice is healthy. It's like, well, actually it's not.
Yeah.
Rice is supposed to be a filler food. It's like bread.
Yeah.
I don't think you would go over to somebody and be like, hey, bread's healthy.
Yeah. I don't know, dude, but I would tell you just from my personal experience, whenever I eat bread, I gain weight.
Sure.
When I eat rice, I lose weight. There's just something. So because I remember when those first months that I was in Japan, I never ate bread because I'm like, bread is Western. I'm going to eat Japanese food every day. So I'm going to eat rice. And I mean, I know that's not everybody. Everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
But what I find is even, people say you get fat on sake, right?
Yeah.
I find when I binge drink sake, if I don't eat other stuff, because sometimes when you get drunk, you want to chomp on stuff. But if I don't do that, I lose weight. It's really weird. I don't know what's happening.
So, well, we can talk about the sake. I think that's a whole nother thing, but I think in regards to bread versus rice, I would argue that it goes bread is a larger part of a meal when you're eating bread with other things than rice is with other parts of a meal. Think of when I think of rice, my go-to thing is yakiniku.
Yakiniku,
right? I always eat rice with yakiniku, or when I go have Korean, or I guess Korean's not Japanese, but it kind of is Japanese food.
You can get samgyeopsal, which is you can Japanese version of it,
but when I'm eating rice with Japanese food, typically it's I'm eating this main portion and then I'm eating rice with it.
Yeah, right.
Versus if I'm having a Western meal with bread is I'm eating a sandwich, or we're eating Italian and I'm just binging on bread while I'm waiting for food to show up.
Yeah, right.
It's such a larger portion of the meal.
Yeah.
I think that you will end up consuming more bread throughout the meal than you will of rice in a more Asian style.
Yeah, I think when you talk about how one of the things that was really interesting for me, like you said, the portion size. Yeah. And also what you just said about the rice.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that got me too is like the flavor of the stuff too. Because every year when I go back to the States, and I haven't been back for a couple years now. Well,
yeah,
actually,
me too, man. It's
but
been
like
2.5 years.
Yeah, whenever I go back, I always get a little bit more overwhelmed by the heaviness of the food that I eat.
Very much so.
Yeah. So like it's funny how it's like the way that I describe, like American food that I eat where in Boston is, it's really heavy.
Yeah.
But there's no substance to it. Whereas like Japanese food is very light, but there's a lot of substance to it. Yeah. And a lot of like American friends that I have, when they first come here, they're like, yeah, this food doesn't have very much taste to it. But it's
I do agree there. I think, well, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm not trying to say that I don't like Japanese food. I do. But I think out of all like the international cuisines, I think Japanese food has the least amount of, well, maybe it's just me, but it feels like the least amount of taste. But my preferences, to be fair, I am a person who really likes spicy food. Yeah. So I really gravitate towards like Chinese and Korean. So that might be why.
Dude, if we had a little bit more of this, I'd probably be fighting you right now because I'm very passionate about this. But like, so no, because like here's the thing. This is kind of like one of the things that I love about Japanese culture and that I've seen is like, like one thing that people don't understand about Japanese food, because you don't really see this over in the States, is how much like slimy food there is, like natto and like
Japanese
and like
food.
okra.
Yeah.
And now it's just like that taste kind of thing. It's like it's disgusting for me. I mean, I'm used to it now, but like, do you know what totoro is? Like the grated yam that you put on rice. Have you been to what's that gyutan place? Negishi? Have you been to Negishi before?
What you're describing sounds really familiar to me, but I don't know if I've had it.
Anyways, but yeah, so like there are a lot of like dishes with like a slimy taste to it, And like when you think about Japanese food, a lot of people would say that the taste is weak, and especially when you're coming from like a spice heavy culture, right? Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. But the thing that I love about Japanese food that you don't really get anywhere else is that like what Japanese food tries to do is it tries to take the natural taste and have you focus on that. And I think like when you put like a lot of salt and a lot of seasoning on things, it's almost like what you see in Shibuya, like the loudspeakers trying to grab your attention. And like, let's say like you've been eating those kind of foods your whole life. Yeah. The moment that goes away, that silence is like, it feels like nothing. It's almost like unbearable because you're not used to it, right? Yeah. But when you get used to it, you realize there's a lot of nuance in it too. And that's Japanese food to me.
Sure. I would actually agree with that. For me, like when I think of Japanese food, I don't think of taste. I think of texture and experience. Yeah. Because that's just personally how I kind of picture Japanese food. It's like, like when you're describing natto, it's like, I don't think anybody's eating natto because of the taste. Yeah. I think they're eating it because it's like it's got this texture that once it's an acquired taste.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Acquired taste.
Wait, do you like natto?
I do not.
Okay.
But there's a lot of people who do.
Yeah.
And once you get used to the taste, there's that texture that you start kind of like it starts becoming attractive to you.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like when I think of Japanese food, I think more that style, like going back to steak, going back to like Wagyu and Kobe beef, that kind of thing. That feels that way as well. Like the taste is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But it's by far more of the texture.
Yeah.
If you have like, if you're eating Kobe beef and you put it in your mouth and you feel that like buttery sensation.
Yeah.
You don't experience that with other steak.
Yeah.
And I think that feels very unique to Japan for me. Like I can't eat Korean food and have that like texture experience.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's bring this back into eating healthy in Japan.
Sure.
So personally, I think what happened with me and what I think happens with a lot of people who come to Japan is if you try to eat traditional Japanese food all the time, of course you're going to lose a ton of weight. But the issue is that Japan isn't stuck in the Edo period. Japan's a modern country.
Exactly.
And they have damn good pastries, even in the convenience stores that tempt you every time you walk by them. The curry bread, like
for me, it's less so the convenies.
Yeah.
It's more so all the delicious bakeries.
Oh, the bakeries, dude.
The bakeries are so good here.
Dude.
Oh my god.
I gotta tell you, my mom grew up in France. So she's American, but actually she lived in France till she was 5 or so.
Okay.
The best croissant she ever had was in Tokyo.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe it, man.
Yeah.
This used to, well, it's at my previous apartment, so it's not nearby where I live anymore. But they had this French bakery, and they at the bakery, this actually wasn't French, but they made like Australian meat pies.
Oh,
you know about those?
Yeah.
So apparently, I've never been to Australia, but apparently they're a big thing in Australia where like people really like meat pies. Maybe in the UK too. I'm not sure. But so they made meat pies there. Oh my god, man! I used to take the train home, and on my way back, I'd just swing into that bakery and just grab like 2 of those meat pies. Oh god, they're so good. Yeah,
like the level of baking in Japan is like at a whole new level. You know,
it's like you can't even compare them.
Yeah, so one thing, because you know actually Germany has a lot of good bakeries too. You know, Germany, France, and that's where I was a kid. You know, that's where I grew up as a kid. And one thing that was really interesting is that, you know, when you get croissants, like chocolate croissants, originally they used to put like rods of chocolate in them that they would then cook, that would start to melt.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't melt completely. So when you would take a bite, there would be a little bit of a snap in it.
Still got that crunch.
Yeah. But then they changed the recipe. I think they put like Nutella or something in it. But in Japan, they still do like the old way. Yeah. My mom was like, yeah, they do this the way that I used to eat it when I was growing up. This is amazing.
Oh my god.
But yeah, my mom, when she comes and visits, it's the croissants, it's the curry breads, curry pan.
Yeah, curry pan is really good. Dude. I love curry pan.
Yeah, so like Japan is it's a really easy place to eat healthy, and it's a really difficult place to eat healthy.
Yeah. Just
depends on what your values are, I guess.
Well, furthermore, like, and maybe this is just an experience you would have in a big city like Tokyo. Probably less so in the countryside where things are a little bit more traditional. You don't have as many international restaurants. But I mean, here in Tokyo, man, it's like in some ways, it almost feels like it's difficult to eat Japanese food. Do you know what I mean by that?
I get that.
Because there's just so many different options, and especially I find that a lot of people here, it's like if I go hang out with my Japanese friends, often they don't want to eat Japanese food. It's like, oh, let's go get pasta, or you know, let's go have Korean food or something. And like, especially if you're going to have pasta, it's like that's just like calorie city. It's like you're gonna have like a 3,000 calorie dinner, and it's like that's the minimum. But it's so easy to just binge eat. You know, other international foods that are probably less healthy. You know. So.
No, I get that. I mean, yeah, it's just like it's kind of like, you know, people probably have like this image of Japan is like this. Yeah. And Japan is definitely like that. But it's a lot more than that too.
Definitely.
And so like when you actually live here, you actually have a choice. Like I told you, when I first moved here, I was like, I'm going to do like the 100% traditional Japanese stuff. And I was one way, but I live a completely different lifestyle now. You know?
Yeah. I mean, you made pizza like a few weeks back.
I'll tell you, there's some really good pizza in Japan too. I was surprised.
So yeah, I really like that. I mean, obviously I don't know if you don't live here, they have Domino's here.
Yeah,
and
a lot of places, and Pizza Hut.
They have Pizza Hut, they have Pizzala, and you know all that stuff. It's like the kind of American style pizza, but they have the Italian style pizza. Ooh, man, that stuff is good. Yeah, that's when you get like traditional pizza. It's such an eye-opening experience because it doesn't really taste like pizza. It's kind of like a whole new thing.
Yeah, it's definitely different from American pizza.
Very different, yeah, and it's so good.
Yeah, dude. So I'm sure we can talk about food forever.
Yeah.
We can talk about different topics related to food in the future, but I think this is a good place to stop this one.
Sure.
Next time, let's talk about the transportation system in Japan.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, man.
It looks like you got something to say.
I do. I do have something to say.
I'm looking forward to that. Thanks, man.
Yeah.